Hi, I'm George Carnall with ExtraCredit, and we're doing a Zoom podcast between myself and John Davis, who's a relationship manager in Oklahoma. So this is a little different than some of the earlier podcasts that we came, but I thought this would be a particularly important time. Let me read a quote that I recently received. It was from Rick Cohen. He's the Chief Communications Officer of the National Council of Nonprofits. And he said that organizational funding is very important now. Organizations have found that they must serve an increased demand for their services, while at the same time, their crucial fundraising events have had to be postponed. So they are in financial trouble. Some of the nonprofits that ExtraCredit supports, there are churches that have delivered sandwiches to first responders, and Boys and Girls Clubs in the Ozarks have delivered meals to kids who just don't have funds, and other churches have provided different support. So there's a great need for funding. So John, in this time that we find ourselves now and in the near future, how can ExtraCredit serve some of the needs, and how have those needs changed from the nonprofits, merchants supporting them?
Well, I think that right off the top of my head, ExtraCredit gives a merchant an opportunity to do something on behalf of things they care about, which has always been a tenet of ExtraCredit, but they're able to do it with doing it through something they've already paid for or they're paying for on a consistent basis. So there's no additional cost. In actuality, what there is an additional revenue stream for that nonprofit that they care about. And so, as you just alluded to in your quote, there's a tremendous gap that's widening between what is needed for these nonprofits to do in whatever passion and area of service that they exist, and the money that's coming to them, because there has been a sharp decline in any kind of spending by any person in the United States right now, based on the current economic situation. So what I believe would happen is a merchant would find themselves already paying for things that ExtraCredit, through the unique use of technology, would allow them to not pay any more for, but now trim off some of that is going towards those providers that they're using this technology with, and that would be then directed towards their charity.
In light of the major nonprofits, they're in need of funds as well, but there are a number of local charities. How important is the ability for merchants to select the nonprofits that they give to, and how easy is it for the merchant to do that and the funds to get to that nonprofit?
Well, it's important because at the end of the day, they've given us the opportunity to present to them. They're an individual business with an individual passion and an individual mission, and they also have individual things that they care about. So for us to bring ExtraCredit alongside of them, but then to dictate where that money goes for the big charities, unless that's of their choice, it's incredibly important. It's the core foundation of why they started their particular business. It's also the core foundation of why we started ExtraCredit. How easy is it? It's very simple. It's a conversation and a consideration of replacing what they're currently using, whether it be card processing or payroll, with Heartland. And then we begin to direct the money the moment they start running transactions. Should we be that solution for them?
In light of different sellers representing different processors out there, what's the significance of the the wealth of the Heartland products, the solutions that they bring together with Extra Credit. How does that differentiate Heartland and the sellers, the relationship managers, from other processors?
That's a great question. I've thought a lot about that question over the last couple of weeks because, you know, restaurants and businesses in America that serve the public in a retail or restaurant space, they're not the only ones affected by what's going on economically. Many of the processors that merchants have currently chosen and have been doing business with them are affected as well. Heartland is one of the largest processors in the nation and probably in the world. We have a relationship where we are committed to our merchant. We are committed to what they want done, and we are on the street. We're making phone calls, but we are engaged, and so that's an important part in this, is to reach out to them and say, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything we can do to help you? Many of the processors have gone to a call center type of model. They don't even have a name and a face with whoever they got hooked up with or their software got hooked up with. So there's a lot of different things. Locally is again important because Heartland has 1,800 sellers around the country in payroll and card. And those people have relationships, like what my title is, relationship manager. And so that presence is being felt as we take the time to connect with our current merchant base. And a lot of merchants, I think, feel alone right now and lonely, not knowing direction, not knowing how to find out with some of the actions that have been instituted by the government to help curb this economic crisis. Where do I go to get a payroll protection loan? What do I do about my processing? How can I change and become more mobile? I wasn't mobile before. Those are the kind of things that Heartland, their vast amount of solutions, really gives a merchant options. And more importantly, it gives them the ability to create and think in this new normal that we're facing.
It seems to me that what you're describing is so much different than when somebody talks to a merchant about price and price only as to make a change. It seems to me you're talking about value. You're talking about something that's important to the merchant, and you really do become a friend and a counselor when you do that. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, that's our goal. That's our intention. Our credo is 4 words: entrepreneurs respectfully serving entrepreneurs. And those 4 words, which you've heard me say before, tell me everything about my business and about theirs. It tells me that I'm an entrepreneur. It tells me that they're an entrepreneur. It tells me what I'm called to do, serve, and it tells me how to do that respectfully. And so I think there's a whole different mindset. Price is one thing, but right now, value is more important. Solutions to this current situation help a merchant understand why solutions to the future situations can be trusted and reliable if they have a relationship with Heartland. And so I think price, if you save a person $1, they might dance at your wedding. Doesn't really make a lot of sense because the next person could save them another $1, but what are they cutting out of that? What's getting lost in the process? How is the process being watered down? With us, we're not price gougers, we're just value conscious. And to be value conscious right now is to say, what would be most valuable for this merchant given this current circumstance? And when you look at it from that perspective, it becomes invaluable in a lot of ways.
Let me ask one last question, and that is, how does this relationship that you've established through Extra Credit with a merchant, how does that make you feel about the merchant? Let's just talk about how finding another merchant is your perspective changed in looking at merchants now, instead of just doing processing for them, but doing something in addition to helping them process?
It sure has. I mean, it starts with conversation. When you start to have a conversation with the merchant and you engage them on what they are passionate about, and then you realize that they put in long hours for their dream, you start to hear this story that develops about why they really care about not only what they have as a business, but why they really care about what they support locally through a nonprofit or organization that's a 501c3. When we go through this, we start to say, okay, I know how it's affected me as a seller or as a relationship manager, but how has it affected so-and-so? And you start to then, because you've had the conversation, because you know what they care about, all of a sudden you start thinking about it from the perspective of what must be going through their mind right now. And that helps give you, number one, empathy, to really understand where they're at. Number two, compassion. And then I think number three, a desire to give them a solution that alleviates the pressure of the moment, which this is a pressure-filled moment right now in our country and in our economy. Help them alleviate that pressure and let them know that there's somebody standing beside them. And to the degree we can help, and sometimes the help is to be honest and say, we can't help you at this moment because we don't have a solution for what you really need to do. But that's rare. That's rare right now. But even then, to say, to give them that support, to give them that help, comes from their story. It comes from why they are in business and why we had a conversation or why we are having a conversation right now. So when you do that, it makes me feel, I mean, look, this whole industry, it's tough sometimes, but when you can help somebody, it's easier to make a difference than it is to make a dollar. And if you can help them understand how they can navigate these choppy waters, you've got a friend for life. But you also understand that they've put everything on the line for this, and so many of them. And so that's very comforting feeling to me.
Well, I appreciate your chatting here about the significance of Heartland's product line, the value that you, the relationship managers, and the senior payroll advisors bring to the merchant, and then to allow them to, in addition, to donate to a nonprofit organization of their choice, really so differentiates the Heartland story from everybody else. So thanks for sharing that today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, George.